Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing. It is Friday, the 31st of May, the slightly later time, just after 10:30. I know that many of you firing in a number of suggestions why we are late this morning, but it is none of those. I can assure you of that. But I'm delighted to say that Chris joins us this morning. How's it going, Chris?
I can confirm we have not had a long lie this morning. This is not. We're not just thinking it's a Friday during the summer break. Let's just give ourselves an extra hour off. It's been a busy 18 hours or so since the news of James Bisgrove's departure started to come out. So it's plenty to keep us going. I know we laughed and joked towards the end of the season about how are we going to do these videos every morning, what are we going to talk about, and there's the first week done and dusted already, and we're not short of talking points as always.
No, we are not. Of course, the big news yesterday evening is that James Bisgrove has quit to join the Saudi Pro League, newly promoted club Al Qadsiya. He's heading over there. Rangers looking for a new CEO. Before we get stuck into all things Rangers, just a quick word for our podcast sponsors, MPH Boilers. They're opening up a new showroom in Dunfermline, so all you Dunfermline Bears that we can head on down there. They're opening up with a VIP Vegas-themed launch weekend from June 14th to 16th, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. There will be roulette games to win instant prizes. You can also, if you enter, you can win bigger prizes. If you land on zero, you get entered into a grand draw for a 4-night stay. And this is topical at Trump Tower in Vegas with a helicopter tour. The all-important link is in the description below. So do go and check it out, folks. If you are free, perhaps that weekend and you fancy a trip to Trump Tower. Right, let's talk all things Rangers then, as I touched on. Bisgrove departing. Rangers will be looking for a 6-figure sum in terms of compensation. A relatively high amount they're looking for. And I was on with Joshua last night when the news broke, Chris. I think there were murmurings in the last few weeks that something might be going down, and it was confirmed last night. What's your takeaway? What's your reaction to the news, first of all?
I think, as you and Josh discussed, it has been not public knowledge. There has been, as you say, these murmurings over the last couple of weeks. It was also confirmed yesterday that James will move on. It's something that has, I think, progressed quite quickly over the last few days. As far as I understand, that he was approached towards the end of the campaign. He was approached by someone on behalf of the club in Saudi, put the offer to him, put the possibility to him. It's also something he's then had to think long and hard about. I'm sure it wouldn't have been an easy decision for him to leave at this stage, going into, yes, it's going to be a busy summer, but hopefully an exciting summer, and then hopefully an exciting and successful second campaign as chief exec for him. But I think it's just been too good an offer to turn down. I think the fact that he's leaving Ibrox probably not that big a surprise. I think the timing is a surprise. I think we've all assumed that he would be one of he's obviously very business minded, very, very ambitious, very driven. He has moved about from area to area, from business to business. So I think it would have been expected at Ibrox that people would have come in for James Bisgrove and there would have been offers for him, and that he would have eventually moved on. I don't think it was widely expected it would be this summer, but I say situations in life and in football open up sometimes when you least expect them. So I think it's a good thing for James. It's an exciting opportunity. People obviously mentioning the financial side of it. We know the wealth that's over in the Saudi league. So it's also going to be a hugely lucrative deal for him. And I say over the course, he's been good to deal with. Someone that I've enjoyed talking to, spent a bit of time in his company, and I certainly wish him well making that move. But as is always the case in football, and certainly a case at Rangers, as soon as one announcement is made, it's who's next, what's next, how does this impact it, and things quickly move on. And I know that's the focus for John Bennett as executive chairman, and his board and the executive team that are there. Their focus is on the future rather than the past now.
Yep. Mixed opinion from the fan base. Some say he did a good job. Some say not so good. It's fair to say. There were I've been messaged even last night and this morning from supporters concerned about boardroom upheaval, Chris, and the sort of there's been so many changes behind the scenes of late. Of course, he wasn't even in the job for a year after taking over from Stuart Robertson when he left his position as managing director. We've had the likes of Andrew Dixon, Kenny Barclay heading out the door as well. Now John Bennett taking over the interim role as executive chairman until a replacement is sought. Is it important Rangers get someone in quick style, or is it one that you can see sort of going on for quite a while, a la the Ross Wilson debacle when Michael Beale was given free rein over transfers and what have you before Niels Coppin was brought in?
I don't think timescale is something that people should get overly hung up about or overly upset about. I think even if Rangers went to the market first thing this morning and they put a headhunter in place, or they went to a recruitment firm, or they started speaking to people that they know and perhaps have on a list, most people that they're going to go for, unless they're already out of work, they're then going to have their own period of notice to work through. It could be 3 months, could be 6 months. So the chances of you losing James Bisgrove at 5 o'clock last night and having a new chief exec in first thing this morning is obviously not going to happen. But even if you did start that process first thing today, it's not going to be a case of, well, someone will be in to see Rangers through the transfer window. And ultimately, the transfer window is the most important aspect for Rangers over these next 10 weeks or so, whatever is left of the business. It feels like we've been in this transfer window for a long time already. Rangers have to get this transfer window absolutely spot on. That's known amongst the fans, known by the manager and Niels Coppin, and it's certainly known at boardroom level. They have to get this right, and I think that's the most important thing. So we've seen the statement yesterday, John Bennett moving into a role of executive chairman. I think that points to him being a lot more hands-on, perhaps even more hands-on than he has been over the last 6 to 9 months or so. He's not been an absentee chairman. He's not a chairman, or he's not in at Ibrox every single day. He's not in Glasgow every single day. But his role has very much been a hands-on one, almost since he came into the job. I think it's maybe perhaps taken him by surprise how much hands-on he has to be at times, but I think he will be the key driver for Rangers. So yes, they don't have a chief exec that is going to put calls into clubs or speak to agents, but you now have John Bennett, who has been doing that job to an extent, will now step in, and he'll take up some of the weight, if you like, from James's departure. So I don't think I know people will want another one in, and they'll say chief exec is an important role. Of course it is. You can't downplay the role of the chief exec at the football club, and you can't say that you'll be doing James a disservice, I think, to downplay his role and what he's been doing. So we can't say this doesn't make any difference. Of course it makes a difference. But I think when you now have John Bennett being able to put more time and more energy into it, given his own business situation as well, I think that should give fans some degree of comfort. It's not a case of James has left the building and his workload will not be picked up by anyone. The large majority of that workload will be picked up by John Bennett over these next few weeks. And as I say, the transfer window is the most important thing for Rangers. They have to get that right. And I think the way that the statement was worded yesterday by the club, it shows that they are seeing it as close to business as usual as possible. So yes, it's unexpected. Yes, it's a blow to an extent, but the club can't allow this to derail them. Their plans for a transfer window will still be put in place. The players that they want to sign will still be approached, and they'll try and get those deals over the line.
Yes. Now, lots of comments coming in just off the back of that. Bluebells Are Blue says Bennett taking a more active role is more of a concern for me. Now, there's seen some saying, well, criticising Bisgrove in a way that he wasn't a Rangers man, Chris. Wasn't a proper football man and indoctrinated in all of Glasgow Rangers. Do you think that's important, whoever comes in, that they've got a real football savvy brain and a real passion for Rangers?
A football savvy brain, yes. A passion for Rangers, probably not. No. I think if you look at certainly James's last 5 years here, I think that's something that he will have learned when you're in Glasgow, when you're in Ibrox, when you are a more public face of the club, as he has been over the last 12 months. I think you pick up the sense of what Rangers means and the standards and the demands. I think you picked that up fairly quickly. That's not to say James hasn't made mistakes. You think back to the Australia fiasco, shambles, debacle, whatever word you want to throw at it. I think that was something he learned from. To my mind, he should have had more guidance from those round about him at that stage, to say, like, this isn't going to go down well. This might not be something it's worth pursuing. Something that I actually spoke to Dave King about a couple of weeks ago when we had the 2-part big interview. I think a lot of Dave's comments in that are still relevant. He spoke a lot about John and James being the right people to take the club forward, about them knowing what's required in a business and football sense. And ultimately, I think in that role as chief exec, you need to understand the business side of it. You need to understand the unique world of Scottish football. You have to be able to play the media game. You have to be able to play the political game. You have to have a certain standing amongst the fans. So there's a lot of aspects of it. Being a Rangers man, I think, is not the biggest driver. Ultimately, whether that's a chief exec or whether it's a left back, Rangers need the best possible candidate for that role. You wouldn't go and sign a midfielder over another midfielder just because they happen to grow up in Scotland Road. If you have two players, and that shouldn't be the driver there. I think a knowledge of Scottish football would be advantageous. Obviously, a deeper knowledge of Rangers would be advantageous. But if you are in the game, you're going to know what Rangers is all about. You're going to know the demands and history and everything that comes with a football club. So I don't think it has to be a case of we go and get a former season ticket holder in to be chief exec. We just need the best man for the job, and I think that's why the club will take their time. So they'll get through the summer. The search will, I'm sure, tick along in the background. But there's a lot of moving parts at Ibrox over the next few weeks, and the most important ones right now are the deals that are done in terms of players rather than what happens at executive level.
Yeah. There's a comment came in here from Michael. He says, with Bennett now full-time at the club, how will this affect decision-making? A lot of fans were hoping to hear from John Bennett. This was prior to the news yesterday, Chris. I can understand why he never came out previously, but now is the time, I think, that Rangers fans should be hearing from the man at the top. Do you agree?
I think it'll be interesting to see if they do something. I know it's something that a few of us have put to certain people at the club to say, can we do something? Will something happen? As far as I'm aware, it's not something that's imminent, but I think we will. I think John will know himself that it's impossible to keep every member of the Rangers support happy. Now, there's such a one. There's so many of us, but trying to keep every aspect of the fan base happy is impossible. It's not going to happen. Ultimately, I think actions speak louder than words. If he was to oversee a really successful transfer window and the squad was to look better, and he was to address certainly some of the financial issues. I know he spoke extensively about that both in his chairman's report and the figures last November, and then at the AGM a few weeks later. He's made a big play of the 10.5 million that had to disappear, I think was the word that he used at the AGM. That's a big thing for Rangers. They cannot continue to operate with that loss, and that's before player trading. So you take all the player ins and outs out of that. Rangers cannot operate at that level of loss for much longer. One, your investors will have serious questions about where their money is going, and two, if you do it for long enough, there will then be FFP implications as well. So I think that has been a big focus for John over the last 9, 6, 12 months or so, because he has to get that right. If the club is not in a good place financially, it's not going to be in a good place in football terms. All the focus now, having done a lot of good work in the financial side of it, all the focus now is on that transfer window. And ultimately, I think if John and the board and the executive team that is still there, if they can do the right things over the course of the summer, I think that will alleviate a lot of the fears that some of the fans have.
Yep, right, let's get to one or two comments that are coming in. There's so many coming in off the back of it. There's one here. Glenn says, morning all from sunny Blackpool. Do you think Bisgrove will take Tavin Golson with him? Would be surprised if his new club Al Qadsia would come calling. Those Saudi reports will not go away in regards to Tavernier and Connor Goldson. And there's an interesting point coming in here. Sam with a point, just ties in with what we sort of touched on. How involved will Bennett have to be? Will Coppin handle all the transfer negotiations and Bennett just approve the spend? Is that how you reckon it will work, Chris, during the summer window?
I think the departure of James, you've almost taken a layer out of it, or you've taken a piece out of the jigsaw. So rather than the manager and Neil Coppin deciding on, right, this is the number 8 we want, this is the midfielder we want, it'll cost that much in a transfer fee, it'll cost that much in wages, it'll cost that much in add-ons, etc. They then, in past times before James's departure, they would have put that proposal to James. He then takes it to the chairman. The chairman decides whether it's financially viable or not, and of course it then goes to the board for sign off. If it's signed off at all levels, if it's a box ticked by every one of those levels, Rangers then go and progress on that deal and try and sign the footballer. The fact that James is not there and John will now take a more active role, a more hands-on role in that, you've almost taken a layer of that process out. That's not to downplay the importance of the chief exec role. That's not to downplay the work that James has done previously and would have done if he had remained at the club. It's just almost a streamlining of the process for this transfer window. Rangers will replace James as chief exec. That layer will be put back in, but I don't think it's a massive concern right now that layer is not there. I say John Bennett is very much on his he's very much on the case in terms of doing things properly, doing things smartly, but he will be fully aware that things have to be done to the highest standard this summer, because as we've all said for a long time, this window has to be right. If they don't get it right, it sets us back not just for next season but for seasons to come. The mistakes of 12 months ago cannot be repeated, and I hope, and I'm fairly confident this will be the case, that Rangers will have learned from that.
Yeah, Neil touches on this. We touched on it at the top of the show, Neil, how much compensation will we get for him leaving? 6 figures, whether that's the low end or high end, I'm not entirely sure, but Rangers will be getting, well, they are seeking compensation for James Bisgrove's departure. Possible replacements. Denzel's putting my name forward, says Derek, you'll need bigger hair and a good suit for the job. If Rangers are giving me the call, then God help us all, Denzel, because I don't have the thought of that doesn't bear thinking about. Interesting point. We'll touch on some interesting points coming in. First of all, Matt Weir, directed at your good self, Chris. Of course, Rangers with a number of investors. Says, morning, Chris. What's your take on Stuart Gibson? Do you think he'll take an active role in the club? Do you think it would be beneficial for the club to utilise him more? He's based out in the Far East, isn't he, Stuart Gibson? Big fan, of course. And I'm not entirely sure whether the departure of Bisgrove will see him or others take a more active role in the day-to-day runnings of the club.
I think it depends how fans categorise an active role. Now, if you think of Stuart putting a lot of money in when he first got involved with the club, it was myself that actually had the first exclusive interview with him. Must be 3-4 years ago now. In fact, it might have been during COVID. I can't actually remember. A lot's happened since then. Sure, but I think that's he's clearly a good figure to have at boardroom level. But in terms of active role, what are the fans looking for? I think there's this thing of we need someone to do more, but is that do more publicly so the fans see it, or do more behind the scenes when we don't actually know what's been done. So I think to have someone of his business acumen, to have someone of his business experience and clear success, and to have someone of his wealth, for him to be involved with the club, I don't think is a negative thing. Will he be Rangers chief exec? No. Will he start getting more involved in transfers in terms of day to day? I would doubt it, because I think that's the role that John Bennett will now carry on and take on. So I wouldn't be surprised if Stuart is obviously a valued member of the board, certainly a valued investor, but I don't know what else people are looking for in terms of being active, if it's just giving our TV interviews or speaking to us or being at games more. Does that make him more active? It's a difficult one to kind of pin down and to answer, because what are fans actually looking for in terms of activity from someone who is a board member and an investor?
Yeah. Right, let's move on. I know a few of you want to start talking about transfers. It's nearly time that the transfer window opens. A goalkeeper that was linked yesterday by the name of Stojan Lekovic, headkeeper, says with Rangers' interest in both Liam Kelly and Lekovic, does this infer either a McCrory or Butland departure? I fully expect Robbie McCrory to leave, buddy. And Jack Butland, I would not be surprised if he was to depart as well. The boy Lekovic, apparently a report in Germany suggests that Aberdeen and Rangers are keeping tabs on him. Werder Bremen had him scouted as well before I think they brought in a number one, but a number of other German clubs are also looking at him. Available, I'm led to believe, for six figures once again. I'm not entirely sure how much that would entail, but he's a giant of a man, Serbian goalkeeper. Rangers also have been linked with the Belgian goalie Bodar. I think it was a month or so ago when they were initially linked with him, Chris. I think it's just sensible planning, forward planning for if Butland is to depart. I think Kelly coming in. Listen, I think Liam Kelly will be looking to strive for that number one spot. Whether he is good enough to be the Rangers number one remains to be seen. But I think it's no surprise to see Rangers linked with other goalkeepers.
It's an area of the squad where there will be movement. Also, John McLaughlin will move on. That's not a massive surprise to anyone. So that automatically leaves a space that has to be filled. Liam Kelly, as far as we're aware, he will make the move. Rangers are certainly keen to try and get that deal over the line. He will be the replacement for Robbie McCrory. I'd be amazed if Robbie doesn't move on this summer. I think the only way that Robbie doesn't leave is if Jack Butland heads out fairly early on in the window, and the manager then says to Robbie, "You are number one. You've been here long enough. You've shown what you can do. You're going to get the gloves." I don't think Robbie will go into another season of taking his chances or I'm here to fight it out with someone. I think he will see it as, well, I've done my time. Every time he's played, I don't think he's ever let the club and the team down. I'd be disappointed if he moves on, because I do think he's a Rangers number one, but I would fully understand it, because at his age, 26 now, he has to be playing football. He just has to look at Ross and what he's managed to achieve. Left Rangers, it would have been a really hard decision for Ross to make the move on, but the last couple of seasons his career has progressed. Now he's got himself in the Scotland squad. It would be great to see him get to the Euros. If Robbie had been playing football, I know Steve Clark is a big fan of him.
Get in that squad.
If Robbie had been playing football, he would have been in that squad and he'd be going to the Euros, ironically ahead of Liam Kelly. But he would certainly been in that conversation. This season, last season, it's not going well for him. There's been not broken promises, as maybe too strong, but I think there's opportunities that he expected have not materialised. Yeah. So it's time for Robbie to move on. Butland, as we've said, that's going to be one of the main talking points of the summer. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he moves on, because there will be Premier League interest, there will be money put on the table for him, and it's then up to Rangers how much is the right number. They will have a figure in mind. If someone meets it, then for me it makes sense. Unfortunately, sadly, because of how impressive he's been, but I think there's a lot of reasons why Jack Butland may have to move on this summer, unfortunately.
Yeah. and a number of people saying why or when are we going to hear from Rangers with regards to the out-of-contract players. I think today is officially the final day of their contract, so we should hear either later on today, I'd imagine, or tomorrow about the players that are departing. So we should have a comprehensive list. I'm not expecting any major surprises. I think other than Leon Balogun, I think everyone will be free to find new clubs. Now, Rangers have been linked with a number of South American players. OS19 says, you think we're planning on moving the club to South America with some of the links we're getting at the minute. One such player is Thomas Galdames, the Chilean defender. Now, he has been speaking after finishing his season with Godoy Cruz. He's been named in the Chile squad next week for a friendly against Paraguay before the Copa America. He was asked directly about a move to Rangers. He says, I don't know anything about my transfer yet. I prefer not to say anything about it. I don't want to say anything until something is concrete because there has been a lot of speculation. The transfer market begins now, but I have to concentrate on the national team. If I do get a transfer, it needs to be something that will be good for my career. And that's what I have been working for since the day I became a footballer. I want to play for my country and go to the Copa America. All I can say is that Godoy Cruz have treated me very well since the day I arrived there. The people at the club have made me feel as if I am one of their own. And that would have been very important for me to be able to perform, to be comfortable and happy in the club. Until something happens, I remain a Godoy Cruz player. Like many of these players that have been linked, Chris, I don't know too much about them, but again, he comes at a decent age. I think what is he, 25 years of age, left-sided. I think he's a fullback, and seen the little clip of him. Looks like he likes a tackle. But Rangers have also seen linked with a Uruguayan player as well. Are you quite excited about the prospect of a load of South Americans pitching up in Govan?
The names just keep on coming, don't they? I think was it Wednesday that Galdames was linked. I think that was the first kind of murmurings of it. I've not heard too much on that one to suggest that it's close or that it's a goer. It's one I think to keep an eye on, given the reports from South America. But I've not had any encouragement from this end, as I would put that one. In terms of South America in general, I think there has to be a balance. I don't think you can go and fill the side with them. But we have seen there has been a notable one over the last couple of seasons who did okay at times. Perhaps a bit of a hothead for managers to handle. But you look at someone like Morelos, that shows there are clearly good players there. There's clearly a market that Rangers, I think, have to look into. They have to try and tap into it. That's not to say you go and flood the team, but as I said the other day there on the show, I'm encouraged that Rangers do seem to be looking in different areas of the game. It's not just a case of we'll go and sign what's in the English Championship, because that hasn't worked out well over the last few seasons. So I do see the benefit of going into different markets, but just because there is a whole host of South American names being linked doesn't mean to say that a whole host of South American players will be signing. So again, I think, as I said on Monday, everyone just keep calm, keep the head. There's a long way to go here.
Yeah, we've already got one in the door, of course, in Yefty or GFD. Whatever pronunciation takes your fancy. Myself and Joshua, incidentally, he's written a great scouting report on him. That will be coming your way on the website this coming Sunday, and the video will be on YouTube as well, so something to look forward to over the weekend. Let's get to a few more points before we wrap up for the day, just on the prospect of South Americans flooding Ibrox. World's greatest DJ says, do we get tacos in the pie stands? I would not be opposed to that whatsoever. I do enjoy a taco or two. Yeah, a fan of tacos, Chris?
If you fancy bringing them into the press room as well, I'm sure the boys would be most appreciative. The standard of food in the Ibrox press room has certainly risen over the last season. It was one of the, as it turned out, it was one of the highlights of the campaign, unfortunately. But if you fancy branching out as well, as I'm sure the various guys of the Fourth Estate will not be against it.
Yeah, Death Surf tuning in on his holidays. Morning, lads from Rhodes. Couldn't miss a show. We'll be devastated to see Butland go, but feel like it was always going to happen at the end of the season. Our next South American links are a positive, he says. And this is interesting from Mandy. It ties in with what Barry Ferguson said as well. He's identified two players. I think two players we've said on this show many times before. It says that Rangers should be looking at bringing in Connor Barron and Lennon Miller. Mandy with the point, we need to bring in Scottish players to our team. We've lost our identity, is what she says. I think both in agreement, Chris. Would like to see a nucleus of Scottish boys in that Rangers team. I don't think there's been enough in the last few years, and I would like to see Rangers bring in some young Scottish boys this summer.
I think it's, in terms of it's probably the same answer that we give to the South American question, is having that balance. I'm sure that's something that the manager will be acutely aware of over the course of the next few weeks. You can't have an entire dressing room full of South Americans. I don't think there's enough quality just within the Premiership just to go and sign the best of what's on your doorstep. So I think there's a balance to be struck in terms of players from different areas of the game, in terms of different cultural backgrounds, language backgrounds. Obviously, talent and technical ability are massive factors. Finance is also a huge factor. So there's definitely a lot of moving parts to building a squad. It's not just a case of, well, we fancy him, we'll go and sign it. There's a lot of, especially when Rangers need as many players, that this rebuild is going to be significant. They will have to be ruthless in it and with it. I'm really interested to see how this develops over the next over the next couple of weeks. We will see Rangers trying to be proactive in the market, because they know with the squad coming back in late June and then going away to the training camp early July. You've then got the Champions League games. You've got the start of the league campaign. The manager referenced that towards the end of the season. Time is of the essence. Yes, we're still in May, but Rangers are fully aware of the timescales that they're working to and almost working up against.
Yeah. And thank you. We'll end up with this. Ewan Crawford has kindly donated to the channel. That's very kind of you, buddy. It says, looking forward to a good transfer window for the club. You guys do a top job bringing us the news. Well, that is very kind of you to say so. Right, over on the website, you'll find all the reaction from the James Bisgrove news. Folks, do go and check it out over on YouTube as well. As I touched on over the weekend, you've got that hefty video coming your way. Yeah, we'll keep you updated if there's anything coming out of Ibrox with regards to transfers or even more off the pitch movement. Then you'll be the first to know here at the Rangers Review. But thank you to each and every one of you for tuning in this week. And hopefully you have a good Friday and enjoy your weekend. We'll speak to you again on Monday. Bye for now.